The flames were roaring, the sky thick with black smoke. Screams echoed through the air as people ran in every direction, faces contorted in terror. In the middle of the chaos stood a young scholar, Aiden, clutching an ancient scroll to his chest. His mind raced, trying to recall every bit of knowledge he'd gathered over the years. He shouted orders to those around him, his voice loud, authoritative, and frantic. Move the water barrels here. Form a line. We must protect the library. His words fell like stones, bouncing off the ears of those too panicked to listen. The fire spread, devouring everything in its path, including the sacred library, the very heart of the village, containing centuries of wisdom and history. Aiden sprinted toward the blaze, desperate to save the scrolls. His feet pounded against the earth, but an old monk, Kiran, stepped into his path. Wrinkles lined the monk's face like ancient maps. His eyes calmed despite the devastation unfolding around them. "Out of my way," Aiden shouted, his voice trembling with urgency. Kiran didn't move. He merely placed a hand on Aiden's chest, stilling him. His gaze was steady, deep, as though it saw past the flame, past the chaos, past Aiden's desperation. "What are you doing?" Aiden screamed. "We have to save the knowledge before it's all lost." Kiran shook his head slowly. "You are speaking too much. Listen." "Listen?" Aiden's voice cracked. "We don't have time. The fire is spreading." The old monk's voice remained calm, almost a whisper. "Do you hear it?" Aiden blinked, his chest heaving. He strained to hear, but all he could focus on were the flame, the scream, the destruction. "I don't have time for this," he growled, pushing past the monk, determined to act, to save what could be saved. But as he took his first step, something strange happened. His ears caught a faint sound, soft rushing noise that didn't belong to the fire or the chaos. He paused, frowning. There it was again, clearer this time. It was the sound of water running somewhere nearby. Aiden spun around, confused. "What is that?" Kiran's eyes glinted. "Wisdom, listen." Aiden stood frozen for a moment, then darted toward the sound. He followed the noise down a narrow alleyway, past the burning houses, until he reached the source, a hidden well, tucked behind a grove of trees. The villagers had forgotten it even existed. His heart raced as the realization hit him. He turned back to the monk who had followed him, walking at his usual slow pace. "This well could save the village," Aiden whispered, almost in disbelief. Kiran nodded, his eyes serene. "Knowledge speaks, shouts even in times of crisis. But wisdom listens to the quiet thing, the things others overlook." Aiden's mind whirled. He had spent so many years studying, learning, gathering facts and ideas. He had always been quick to share his knowledge, to offer solutions, to speak. But here, now, as the village burned around him, it was not his knowledge that would save, it was the ability to listen, to observe, to notice what everyone else had missed. He raced back to the center of the village, his voice loud, but this time filled with purpose. "The well. There's a well with fresh water. We can still fight the fire." This time, people listened. Together, they formed a line, buckets passing from hand to hand. The water flowed faster and faster until they were dousing the flame, containing the fire. Slowly, the smoke began to thin. The crackling of the blaze died down, and the village began to calm. When the fire was finally out, Aiden stood, drenched and exhausted, staring at the charred remains of what had once been the library. His heart ached, but it was still beating. He turned to Kiran, who stood quietly beside him. "I thought I knew so much," Aiden said softly, his voice hoarse. Kiran smiled. "You do, but wisdom isn't always in the knowing. Sometimes it's in the listening."